Welcome to Heartland Town Hall. I'm Dave Kindle. You might remember me from Sunflower Journeys on public television, but I've moved on from that. I'm just a concerned Kansan who has joined with two other concerned Kansans to launch this podcast. I'm speaking of my wife, Laura Mead, and our friend, Martha Farrell. This is the first edition of our Heartland Town Hall, which we've created as a means of engaging with other Kansans dealing with some of the challenges we currently face. To get the ball rolling on this show, I'll turn it over to my co-host to introduce our guests. So, Martha, why don't you begin?
Thank you, Dave. I would add to what you said that the challenges that we're referring to have been created by so many changes, recent changes in the federal government programs and funding. And with the Heartland Town Hall, we want to give voice to all kinds of people who have been affected. And so our four guests today seem to have that same motivation. That's why we were so interested in them. They have all been involved with developing ways for large groups of people to come together and connect on these issues. What we're going to do is give everybody a chance they have the floor for 2 or 3 minutes to say what they want to say. And then when we've completed that circle, we will be asking questions about what we've heard. So first, we're going to hear from Jim Davis and Laura Shea from Hutchinson. They have founded a group called Hutch Common Ground, and this really grabbed my attention when I heard about it because I grew up in Hutch, and I always found it to be fertile soil for new ideas. So, Jim, you want to start with telling us your story?
Thank you, Martha. My story starts with being a lifelong resident of Hutchinson, but having no background whatsoever in political activism. So with that as a backdrop, my wife and I joined another couple, mixed race couple, to tour Birmingham, Montgomery, and Selma over Martin Luther King Day this past January. We actually had booked tickets for Kamala's inauguration. That didn't work out. So we had this weekend free. We were going to be away from work anyway. So off we went. We were lucky enough to find a guide who bills himself as a foot soldier for civil rights. And he actually, when he was 12 years old, marched in the Selma March to Montgomery. And he was from Montgomery. He was our guide for 3 days. It was an incredible experience, one I will cherish, but it was far beyond my expectations and very uplifting. I was so impressed with the courage of the people in that part of the country and what they've had to go through to be heard and to make their voices known. And it really, looking back, it awakened my inner activist. Didn't know it was there, Martha, but it was. So Laura, my next door neighbor, as she mentioned, is somebody that we carry on big idea talks from time to time. And with her sister Donna, they've been very active politically. My wife and I wanted to have coffee with them and discuss our trip. So we did that for 5 or 10 minutes. And before you know it, we were talking about our concerns about just 2 weeks into the new administration. And the talk went on for over an hour. We decided we needed to see if there were other people that were feeling alone and confused and not sure how to respond or act or whatever. So we each decided to invite a few people and see what happened. So the next week we met again on a Saturday for coffee. 12 people showed up. Out of that first meeting came the name Common Ground. One of our participants suggested it. We loved the idea. And so we're a week later, and it's February 1st was our first meeting with coffee. And then on the 8th, we were meeting again. We had 12 people show up. We met 2 weeks later, 24 people showed up. We met another week later, 49 people showed up. And correct me if I'm wrong, Laura, but I think as of yesterday, we have 438 in our database.
That's right.
So it has exploded. And what I'm so proud of is that it's nonpartisan. we have a strong contingent of Republicans and independents. And that's one of the reasons that we have not directly affiliated with some of the groups like Indivisible and 5501, including some fairly well-known
That
local politicians who are no longer in the legislature: Dave Kerr, Ed Berger, Steve Becker, Judge Becker, and Mark Treaster, who were all members of the Senate or the legislature, and Jason Probst, who was a Democrat. The first four were all Republicans. So at this point, we're doing a lot of different things, and what I've come to realize is a group like ours needs a really strong organizer, and that's my intro to a really strong organizer and innovator, Laura Shea.
Thanks, Jim. I don't know about all that, but we're trying. Let's put it that way. My background and my work was always working with a team, and for Jim and I, that looks like, for us, it looks like, Hutch Common Ground is not a membership. It's not a list of people. It is truly a team, and that's how we both feel about it. And that's helped us, and I think helped the group come together and act together when we needed to. My mom was an activist and always was. She was head of the Reno County Environmental Action Committee, or whatever it was called. I remember eating a lot of bologna sandwiches back then, yeah, as Jim said, just to talk got us together, and we've done some really cool things. Immediately my head was thinking about Hutch and Reno County and all the wonderful people here, kind of to your point, Martha. People that want to help, but they didn't know how to help. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know what to help with. And that's where we kind of came in and filled a gap to give them actionable items. One of the things that's really important to us is that, we may put out a list. We do put out a list of action items at least weekly, and it's for each person to choose what speaks to them. Out of 6 or 8 things, maybe I only do 2 of them. That's okay. What am I passionate about? What are my skills? What are my strengths? So that's been a big deal, and it's helped keep people active. And that was the main thing: give them a place to belong and to keep them active, doing whatever they could. And that looks different for everyone. I would like to read basically what the group is. A Hutch Common Ground seeks to organize and facilitate peaceful, nonpartisan, to Jim's point, but action-oriented support from the community members who are concerned about the state of democracy. So that's our one sentence that kind of describes it, which helps keep, I think, all of us focused. And one of the other things that's really helped me is we realized immediately that we needed a little bit more than that. Maybe a few sentences that center around how to think about the group. And really they're boiled down to 4 things, just common sense kind of things, but privacy, or as private as you want it to be. We blind copy emails. Nobody has to know you're in the group. You can come to meetings and be as visible as you want and go to rallies, or you can write from home, email from home, your legislatures, things like that. So that's a big deal because we want to be a really welcoming place for whoever you are. There's a role for you here, and they're all different, and that's okay. The second really piece is community. We want to help in the community. We want people in the community to know that there's a fairly getting larger group that's here to support them and feels the way that they do. So community has been a big piece of it. We've worked with the NAACP. We've worked with Hutch and Harmony. We publish information on county meetings or city meetings about this and that, just things that might interest the group as well. 3 is to center around action. We can all read a lot of articles, there's so much information, it's just an overload. But what can we do about it? And, at times we all express that, well, my one little thing, this isn't making any difference. Why are we still doing this? And then we just have to remind each other that it's all, everything we do is maybe a grain of sand, and that grain of sand is going to build a beach, whatever that looks like. But together it does make a difference. Every little action adds up, and we have to keep going. There's no alternative to that. And then 4 is focus on the individual. And Jim and I are really aligned on this one, that, again, going back to not every action is for everyone, and that's okay. Don't feel bad about it. Don't feel guilty about it. Do what you can. You know, my mom's a good example of that. She can't write anymore because of her shaky hand, but my mom can stamp. You know, it's just a example of the different ways and the talents we all bring to it. And that's really kind of kept us going the same direction. And lastly, one of the other things I think is, I missed it as far as action oriented, but what's helped a great deal is the idea of don't let perfect get in the way of good. Because if we sit around waiting for perfect solutions and perfect ideas, that is not going to happen. So let's go. Let's make it good and let's go. Don't wait for perfect. And I have to remind people of that sometime, but having those kind of sentences around, you know, common sense sentences around the pro-democracy move has really helped me as an organizer.
Thank you very much, Laura and Jim. It's really inspiring to hear about, and can't wait to hear more. Next, we want to introduce our other two speakers today, our other two guests. They are from a group called 5051. It's a grassroots organization that started last February as well in response to the actions of the executive branch and the federal government and the changes happening there. 5051 has chapters in all 50 states, which relates to its name. So I'd like to introduce you to Christy Allen and Jolene Grabill, who are both part of Kansas 5051. Christy, would you like to go first?
Sure, absolutely. Boy, 55 years ago, I was at KU marching in the streets for women's rights. I was a liberal arts major, specializing in topics and problems of women. So that's probably where I first started my activism, you know, was this is not right, women have rights. And I gotta say, I went to KU because I felt like it had the most international students. That was an affordable university that I could go to. And I was really excited about that. I had ideas of, you know, the world and making a difference. So 55 years goes by. And while I've had varying degrees of paying attention to what's happening in politics in our country, in general, it was status quo. You know, it was what you would expect. It's what we did expect our country to be, you know, equal rights for all, and the Constitution regulated, and we had the balanced three branches of government. And then I think it was COVID actually got my attention. I had no idea what was going on in the White House until COVID happened, and it was a V8. I mean, I just went like, my husband would be asleep and I'd go wake him up and go, do you know what they just said? Did you know this is happening? Because I didn't. I was focused on health and nutrition and just not paying attention. And when things start happening in January, I realized that I could no longer yell at the TV, spend hours talking to my friends on the phone, telling them my opinion and commiserating about how awful things were or how they were going to get. I was overwhelmed with what I was reading. I mean, because now I'm a voracious reader. I just have so many newsletters that I pay attention to, Substack. And it was just not, I wanted action. I wanted action. And this has been a bit of a stair-step experience for me, because first I found a group of women in Johnson County that appeared. There were three branches of resistance. And I went, this is great. And about that time, I decided to forgo sleep for 24 hours and spend 10 hours in the car and drive to Oakley, Kansas, to Western Kansas, and go listen to what my senator, Roger Marshall, had to say, because I just couldn't believe some of the things I was hearing. And I went, oh, this can't possibly really be true. It was pretty obvious in the beginning that since we were in a break room of a small hospital, that he didn't expect more than 10 people to be there. They had to move us to an atrium just to do the bullet points. He was dismissive of women, misogynistic, told a woman to put her hand down. He wasn't going to call on her. He, within 7 minutes after he was patting himself on the back, he said we were the rudest audience he'd ever seen. And if we didn't stop asking questions, he was going to leave. My phone came out of my pocket and immediately started recording because I went, I am keeping this for posterity, but it didn't matter because everyone else was filming too. It was outrageous. And then he finally let a gentleman speak. When the gentleman stopped speaking, we turned to see what Senator Marshall's response was going to be. And it was, I'm busy, I got to go, goodbye. And he was just out of there. He ran away from us. It was 37 minutes into an hour-long town hall. And on the way home, the New York Times called us. And in our car, we had 3 ladies and spoke to one of my friends, took an interview with her. And I was like, wait a minute, you mean the world is kind of interested in this? And the next day, when Roger Marshall's chief of staff said that we were all paid operatives that had been paid to come in there and talk to him, I got angry. And I called all the local Kansas City radio stations, news stations, and Channel 9 did come out to my house and interview Ann and I. And I went, this is good. This is good. But then that, it's your 50 minutes of fame and it stops. So I went back to the women's group and they were going to have a meditation retreat and a potluck. And I said, that's wonderful, but I need action. I need something. And they said, you should go check out Kansas 5051. Kansas 5051 is dedicated to creating a space for people to protest approximately once a month. 50 states, 50 protests, Capitol, all in one day. It's nonpartisan, it's nonviolent, and they believe in upholding the Constitution, the 3 equal branches of government, equal rights for all, and extend executive overreach. So I got involved 5,000% immediately. I have a background in public relations and press release, and I started doing press releases. I know how to do events. Believe it or not, way back in the, I want to say 70s, I did a prayer breakfast for the Republican convention, national convention in Austin, Texas. I knew how to do events, and it became very fulfilling for me to see the amount of people. And I subscribe totally to the 3.5% rule, that if you can get that many, in Kansas, it would be like 130,000 people out protesting, that we could make a difference with a nonviolent, movement. I am a little bit concerned that rule no longer holds given the internet. It has really caused us to live in our own bubble of beliefs. And when we find people who share those beliefs, it's almost like osmotically the bubble will expand to include them. But if there's people who don't, we bounce off of them. And I'm in the process of moving once again I discovered there's a difference between activism and organizing. And organizing is really about creating change and momentum. And so the next level of my participation, I think, is going to be more on getting another senator in there. If I can help make a difference, that we have one more sane senatorial vote, then I will have made the difference in this world that I want to make. And I consider myself a real Kansan.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Christy. Jolene, would you like to share with us?
Yeah, I have on my Real Kansan shirt, which I like to wear. I'm Jolene. I live in Topeka. I'm 70 years old. I should be working in my garden, spending time with my people I love, teaching kids about nature, traveling the world, but I'm fighting fascism. And I find that to be a shocking reality every day when I wake up, because I never dreamed that would be something that would be necessary in my country. Not the country that I depend on to keep me safe, whether it's environment or food or air traffic control. I depend on those things from my government. I also depend on them now that I'm retired for income and healthcare. And I think all of that is at risk these days. And I consider it a desperate emergency. I heard a senator the other day talk about the two ways of thinking about what's happening in our country. And she said there are some people who think it's an existential crisis, a constitutional crisis that requires immediate action to stop now. That's my perspective. And the other perspective is we've been through this before. Trump was a president once and he left and we survived. We just need to ride it out. It'll be okay. I am not someone who holds those beliefs because I believe this is not normal. These changes are fundamental and dangerous to our society and our way of life. And I feel that more intensely because I've worked in government at both the state and federal level. I've worked in Congress, I've worked in the state legislature, and I know how government is supposed to function when it serves the public good. And it is not functioning in that way now. And it is heart-wrenching for me to watch our government be torn apart by people who do not even understand what it's for, how it functions, or what damage they are doing to people's lives. I think a lot about a phrase I learned as a child. I grew up on a dairy farm in Harvey County, and as a result, I was in 4-H for 10 years, a popular Kansas rural youth program. And we had our motto and we had slogans. And one of them was to make the best better. And I can't tell you how many times I've thought about that since January 20th, because for me, every day I am trying to track what this administration is doing to make our country not better, but worse and weaker, particularly in the eyes of the world. I think this poses a threat to my personal way of life and the way of life for everybody I care about, and especially for future generations. So that's why I volunteered in April to join Kansas 5051. Christy was my sound person for a month. She was in my phone as sound person KC because there were 4 Christies in 5051 and we had to distinguish at that time. But we've become friends in the struggle. And I just want to say this struggle is very different. This movement feels different than everyone I've been involved in the past, whether it be women's rights or environment or nuclear power or nuclear weapons. The only one that had a sense of urgency and timing that came anywhere near what I feel in this movement was the nuclear weapons struggle because of the doomsday clock. And the doomsday clock would move by the Union of Concerned Scientists would move the hands closer to midnight every time our country did something that made our lives at greater risk. I sort of feel like we need a doomsday clock for what's happening with our government now, because I feel like I'm losing ground and the administration and all the people that are pulling those puppet strings are winning every day. And I don't know where that I do know where that leads us, and I don't like thinking about it. I want to keep it from happening. So that's why I'm involved.
Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing, Jolene.
Sure.
Okay, now that we've heard a little bit about what you're all doing, let's move on to more of an open discussion. So, Martha, what do you think about what we've heard? Do you have any questions?
I do. One thing that interests me, all of you have stated the nonpartisan nature of your group. And in these days, groups seem to be so polarized. How do you keep it nonpartisan? How does that work within your groups? Go ahead, Laura. Unmute yourself.
Jim and I just talked about this the other day, that it's really shifted to, it's not the party, and probably everybody's going to say the same thing. It's pro-democracy versus not pro-democracy, or MAGA, if you want to call it that. So that is really, we don't even talk about the parties in our group. We don't talk about who you are, what is. It's not a conversation. The conversation is pro-democracy versus authoritarianism. So it's just a different conversation.
Christy?
Well, we don't talk about it either, although we had Democratic parties who wanted to have tables at our events. and we discussed it and said no, because if we had the Democratic Party, we'd have to have the Republican Party. And we wanted to very clearly say no religions and no political parties. Now, we had a person who wanted to run on the Democratic ticket. And so she was asking, are you a registered Democrat? And that's how I discovered in our crowd, we had huge amounts of registered Republicans that were in our protests. We had independents. We had some people I don't think had registered to vote yet. And then we had some Democrats. So it was only through that particular interaction, because we don't ask people, it's all about, we don't like what's going on right now. This is not right. This is not normal. We're protesting the executive overreach. But that one time, that's when I was like, oh my gosh, we are definitely attracting a diverse crowd of Kansans that just don't like what's happening.
Jim, unmute yourself.
I think the name Common Ground speaks well for what we're trying to do. And I think all of us are doing it. The 5051, Christy and Jolene as well. And that is making welcome the people not on the extremes left or right, but the people in somewhere in the middle, the moderates, if you want to call them that, where they don't vote a straight ticket. They vote for the person or for the issue. They don't go to a church and have a list made up for them, or go to a rally with a party and a list is made up for them. And I think where it's really manifested itself and become so powerful within our group is we have people, we have, I mentioned the 4 former legislators who were all Republicans, are very active in setting up and doing things and connecting with our legislators where we might not as a group have that access. Right after Christie's experience in Oakley, we had a town hall in Haven, Kansas at 10 in the morning on a Thursday, and met for an hour with Mike Zamerslup, who is the state representative for Jerry Moran. And it was just the opposite of what Senator Marshall experienced and should have. Shame on him for trying to slip that town hall meeting in the way he did. But at any rate, it turned out we couldn't do the meeting the way we wanted because Mike's car broke down. So at the last minute, we figured out we will do this with a phone. We had 45 people in the audience, and everybody was very respectful. Dave Kerr, who wanted to be in the background, actually held the phone and either directed it towards Mike or to the audience if there was, or the speakers. We had 3 speakers. And it was an exceptional meeting. But that kind of cooperation doesn't come if we are identifying with any party. That comes by the neutrality. And the neutrality is where our power base is. And that power base is what we have tapped into. And I think these other groups like 5051, I think the strength is that it is diverse and there is common ground. My wife calls it the non-MAGA crowd.
Jolene.
Well, this has been a little bit of a challenge. I'm probably in Kansas 5051, I'm probably the most big D Democratic person there with the most activism. I've been to a delegate to a national convention, worked on the state party staff one season when we took the majority in the House, by the way. And so I know how the party functions and what it does. And I'm constantly telling people who don't have political experience, do not put organizational identity of the Democratic Party in connection with our group. It is a huge mistake. And it's hard for them because they want supporters. And they know there's a lot of supporters in the Democratic Party. And I will say that throughout the state, there's a lot of people in the resistance movement who have other roles as Democratic Party functionaries, but they don't function in the movement within those roles. They function in the movement as themselves, working with the community usually, as opposed to us at the state level. And I just think that's real important to do. I mean, I've been worried since since the first Trump administration, that more people who are not voting are deciding who our president is than the people who are voting. And so that's the group of people I want to find and reach out to and get active and motivate.
Wonderful. It's such an interesting thing to reflect on, that nonpartisan nature of many of the groups. In addition to the two that you have, I know Indivisible is another large group that also is nonpartisan. And it's just such an interesting thing. As you've been involved in these groups, one of the things that I'm really curious about is what kind of results have you seen that you've been really encouraged by or surprised by, or made you more hopeful in the groups that you've been involved in? What have you noticed that really made you say, oh yeah, Christy, please?
Well, numbers.
Yeah.
In June, we had 34,000 people across the state of Kansas, all on one day protesting for No King's Day. And Kansas 5051, we had 6,000 at the Capitol. And I think the first one I went to was 4,500, and we just kept getting bigger and bigger. So looking at the numbers and feeling like, well, people really, they appreciate the opportunity. We create an area, a venue, a safe venue for them to express their opinions. And there are more and more people coming, and the diverse crowd. We're starting to see a little bit of people of color, some younger people, because I must admit that, I don't know if it's okay to say I'm Jolene's elder, but we discovered I'm older than her. And the group was originally a lot of retired people, and now we're starting to get more younger people, some people of color, of different ethnicities. It's great. It's awesome. So that's how I would rate the success of that.
Thank you. Actually, I was debating between those two questions. So thank you for addressing both. I've noticed too that other people are reporting that there are some younger people coming and more diverse crowds. So yeah, I'm curious about either one for the rest of you. What have you noticed that you feel encouraged about? And have you noticed a shift in the populations coming? Yes, Jolene, go ahead.
I think one of the challenges for me is that I see protests as a method of giving elected officials courage and cover. And I do not feel that our congressional delegation has been taken advantage of that. I mean, I go to Congressman Schmidt, my congressman's office, every Tuesday. I'll be there this afternoon at 4 o'clock. We sit down with his staff. There's a group of us, and we talk about the issues of the week that concern us. And I've started asking his staff for very specific details and pieces of information, because they have got to learn that they work for us and we can hold them accountable. But in the past, I've seen this kind of activism and turnout change minds, in particularly with the Wolf Creek debate in the legislature. There was one time many, many moons ago, but we went home to Wichita and held town hall meetings in, I think, 4, maybe 6 legislative districts, and they went back on Monday and changed their votes. I mean, I've seen it happen, but somehow that connection between the constituents and the elected officials is broken, and we need to reestablish it or get different elected officials.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, Laura.
One thing that was really encouraging is, Jim and I both really try to stay active in the community. And one way we both do that is by attending monthly NAACP meetings. So we're not waiting for them to come to us. We want to go to them and see how we can help. And one really cool thing that came out of that is one of the meetings I went to, and I said, hey, are you involved in this Good Trouble event coming up? And they didn't know what I was talking about. So, we looked it up on the internet together, and they said, yeah, can you help us with that? Can your group help us with that? And of course we said yes. And so, they had the speakers and did all that, but we had, Jim, were there about 100 people there? A lot of people from our group were there to support that event for the community. I thought that was a really cool moment for us.
That is something that I've noticed. There is this bridging that's happening right now between groups, which I think is wonderful. Jim, yes, please.
I think one of the things that we have struck a resonant chord is we have a rally every Saturday. It's on Main Street at 17th and Main, which is a major intersection, and churches on two corners and a public park, small park on a third corner, and that's where we rally. And we, I think Laura and Keith, one of our volunteers, has a clicker to keep track of how many honks we have and how many flip the birds we have. And it's running about probably somewhere around 100 to 4 in favor. We even have cop cars going by flashing their sirens, and we've had a fire truck go by and flash their horn. But I want to go back to one of the rallies, and it was No Kings that Christy mentioned. That was the largest turnout that we've had. We had 400 people, and it was raining the whole time. I personally signed up 49 people that day to join our group, to get on in our database. And my sheets, I had to go back and dry them out because they were so soggy. The ink was running. But those rallies, Laura, what are we up to now? 15, 14?
This will be our 15th Saturday.
Consecutive Saturdays. And we have people that are driving by. They see us out there. They stop to see what's going on. And we find out where their head is. And we oftentimes have them want to get into learning more about what we're doing and how we're doing it. For John Lewis, we rallied at the courthouse. We supported the NAACP. They showed up with maybe 10 to 15 people. Hutch and Harmony maybe had 5. And the rest, which was probably over 80 people, were our Common Ground people. But it wasn't our event. We were there in support. As I drove away, about 15 of them had, as we departed, had gone to the corner of the courthouse at an intersection and were there with their signs and protesting. And the other piece that I wanted to just quickly mention, one of the groups that we're seeing the young people coming out is the LGBTQ. Those folks are absolutely terrified, and with good reason, because they are so marginalized and so put down. Transgender, it's despicable the way they are being treated, and they feel safe with our group, and they are bringing their friends.
Oh,
In a small town, like
yeah, go
having
ahead,
that
please.
having that visual show every week in a small town in Kansas is really meaningful. It means that if you're driving by, like there's a group of people that are fighting for what you believe in. They're not afraid. Oh, maybe I can do that too. It means a lot in a small Kansas town. So, it's just one of the many things we do, but it is really important.
I think that's such a good point, that even if people aren't showing up to the meetings, that you are impacting people who are seeing that visual of, oh, I'm there. I can be part of this too. I think it emboldens. And again, that intergroup transference that we're seeing happening so much, that groups are collaborating together. I think that's a big part of it too. Absolutely.
Jolene had a point.
Well, I wanted to say we had a similar experience working with our community over the Juneteenth parade. We found out we'd reserved the Capitol for the same day, basically the same time periods, and that fostered some collaboration we hadn't planned on, but it turned out to be very positive. I'd never marched in the Juneteenth parade before, but I have now. And the other thing I want to say is that, this whole idea that Trump wants to create a sense of despair in the American people and keep us isolated and separated and confused by everything that's happening. That is such a productive strategy from their end that I think part of our work is to make sure we stay connected. And one thing, this is not this go round, but in the go round for the constitutional amendment on reproductive rights a couple years back, we were feeling it very intensely. I was feeling it very intensely. And we have a big 4th of July parade in my neighborhood every year. And I decided about 4 days out to organize some friends to march in the parade with our vote no signs. And I had neighbors tell me not to do it. They didn't want politics in the parade. When there's always politicians, somebody, Steve, whoever was our congressman, had a machine gun in the back of a truck one year. And I thought, okay, that's not going to stop me. And so anyway, we had like, I don't know, 25 people. And I made an 8-foot wide banner, which I still have if you need to borrow it, that said, "Trust women." And I had 3 men carry it, and it was easy to find them. And they were happy to do it. And we marched, and we have 186 or 7 houses in our neighborhood around a park, and all but 3 cheered us on and yelled good things and put their fists in the air. And particularly older women were up clapping like crazy. And it was empowering, and it felt good. It felt good. And it was a hot as hell day, and everybody was a little hesitant about doing it, but still we talk about it and how uplifting it was. And I just want people to know we'll lift you up and get you out of the doldrums to get you active if you need some help.
That's beautiful. Jolene, thank you so much for sharing. In all honesty, that's a big part of why we started this podcast. Our idea is that we want to really enlift and enliven people and encourage them. So Dave, I think it's you. I'm turning over to you, my friend.
Well, I saw that there was, Christy had another point she wanted to make, so maybe this will be the last one because it's probably about time to wrap up. So Christy, what's on your mind?
Thank you. I just want to address Kansans. I think that we are a special breed, free staters. And if you look, I'm from Johnson County, which used to be really, really red. It's kind of purple now, but we prided ourselves in electing Dennis Moore to Congress, who is a Democrat. We always picked the right person. And I think Kansans are like that. You might have conservative views or more liberal views, but we have more in common ground, than we do differences. Hence in August 2nd, the initiative, it passed with flying colors. Right. And we're still considered a red state. And I would like anyone watching or listening to this podcast to think about that they are a true Kansan, which means that they're a free stater and they can choose for themselves the country and the state they want to live in.
Well, that's a wonderful point to wrap up on. So thank you for making it, Christy. And I want to thank all you guys for joining us today. This has been really a stimulating conversation. And thanks to you at home for watching. We hope this may inspire you in some way and assure you that you're not alone in these difficult times. Please be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you'll be notified of upcoming shows. And check out the information we have available on our website at heartlandtownhall.com. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.